So I'd like to welcome Dan Kelly to our show. Dan is the president and CEO and chair of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. CFIB is the largest small business association in Canada with more than 95,000 members advocating for small business with all levels of government, as well as providing advice, tools, and savings for its members. Dan has been with the CFIB since 1994 and became president in 2012. In 2015, Power and Influence magazine named him as one of the top 100 most powerful and influential people in government and politics. Welcome to the show, Dan. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, great to be with you.
I know you, Dan, had a little laryngitis, so been a bit of a trooper and coming out and joining us. So thank you, Dan, for that. You sound great. You sound great.
Oh, good. I'm almost over it, but yeah, I'm a little husky today.
So I thought we would just start off more in a general sense. Obviously, it depends on which sector we're referring to with respect to different small businesses. But overall, what is how is the environment for small business today? What would your comments be regarding small business? How are they doing, right? We've had a shutdown for a few years. We came out of that shutdown. We're in a different environment today. It's even since the last time you and I spoke. How is the environment for small business?
Sadly, it's not gotten dramatically better. Sure, we're past lockdowns and some of the most acute of the business restrictions, but the legacy, sadly, is a long one. At this stage, 3 years after the pandemic began, only half of small businesses are back to their pre-pandemic levels of sales. Only half. On top of that, 2/3 of businesses have had to take on debt in order to get through the pandemic. Not debt for good purposes like expansion or growth, but debt to keep their lights on just to survive. And that debt is hanging over them like crazy right now. The average small firm has taken on $105,000 worth of additional debt just to survive. That debt is coming due. For example, the Canada Emergency Business Account loans are coming due at the end of this year, so big worry on that front. And then even businesses that are doing all right with respect to sales, they're telling us, just like consumers are, that the cost increases they're facing are killing them. Inflationary pressures, higher interest rates, all those things are real, and labor shortages causing huge pressures on business bottom lines, even for businesses for whom sales are not particularly bad.
So what would you say is the biggest, hurdle for these businesses today? You mentioned a few things there. Would you say it's still a labor shortage issue, perhaps? Or is it the higher interest rates, the higher inflation, obviously the higher costs? I know last time we spoke, labor was at the top of the list of issues, finding labor, finding good quality people to come and work. Obviously, back then, last time we spoke last year, people were still wanting to stay at home. Not as many people out there looking for jobs. I think that has improved. But what would you say is the biggest issue now facing these businesses?
Yeah, look, there's a bunch. You've mentioned several of them, but the shortage of labor is right near the top of the list. This is killing businesses. Even, a classic story that I keep hearing: a restaurant perhaps had 10 employees during the pre-pandemic. Right now, sales are low, so they only need 5 employees, but they're only able to find 2. And so the business owner, him or herself, is often filling the gap, causing huge pressures and stresses. The business owner is not able to concentrate on growing the business, finding new markets. They're just focused on serving their existing customers because the labor shortages are so acute. And business owners are amping up more money. This isn't just a wage issue. It's just that there are far fewer people than we need to get the job done in lots of sectors and lots of areas of Canada. Obviously, there's other pressures too. The legacy of debt, that is like an anvil that's dragging so many businesses down right now. If we could get some relief from the debt that businesses are facing, particularly that government-backed program that was there for pandemic support, that would provide a bit of breathing room to businesses as well. So debt, labor shortages. We've also seen higher taxes. I mean, EI rates went up this year, CPP rates went up this year, carbon taxes, which businesses pay in huge amounts. Those taxes all went up, even at a time where businesses are not able to afford to grow and expand. So we're making the problem worse in many instances, not better.
Right. I talk to a lot of businesses every day, and I'm seeing or hearing a lot of stagnant businesses. People are telling me things are better, but still not in growth mode. That they're just treading water. Would you agree? Like, have you seen any areas of growth, any specific sectors of the market where you are seeing growth, for example?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. There is that kind of stagnant feeling that's out there. For those businesses that are not feeling that they're still drowning, many are feeling like they're just treading water, not able to get ahead. Yeah, there are some businesses that are being successful. Some of them, obviously, during the pandemic, they made business shifts that have actually been helpful to them. But those are fewer in number than the businesses that are struggling, or at least on a flatline basis. But if you're flatlined as a business and you're not able to grow and your costs are going up, that's a pretty awful situation. And a lot of businesses, yes, they are having to increase their prices too, but they are in markets where they know that they can only do that to a limited degree. So the business is becoming less profitable, more vulnerable to any downturn. Our most recent business barometer, we do a monthly forecast from business owners to get a sense of where they're going in the economy, what they think about the future. And there was a touch more optimism now. For many business owners, they're telling me that things are stagnant, but they feel like the worst is over. There isn't the sense that there is a chance that we're going to miss out on a recession, which is good, that it'll continue to be flat for a little bit. But there's a bit more optimism in the longer term forecast than there was, I would say, a few months ago, and that's a positive thing.
Let's talk a bit about banking, right? Because banking crisis in the U.S., I would call it a mini crisis, really didn't spill over to our banks, although we have a lot fewer banks and a lot larger banks, fewer and larger here than down in the U.S. But there's definitely been a drying up of credit. And just wondering from your standpoint, are you seeing or hearing from small businesses that obtaining credit, lines of credit, getting money, loans, has that been an issue for these small businesses for them to grow?
It hasn't been a big issue for a while, but you're quite right that it is ticking up. Right now, about a quarter of our businesses tell us that they have a shortage of working capital, that they're not able to get the money to borrow what they need for to seize an opportunity that they may be facing, and that's a worry. The other big one that we talked about a second ago is just dealing with the debt that they already have. And there's good debt and bad, and a lot of it right now is bad debt that they've had to take on just to survive. I'm deeply worried. There are 900,000 small businesses that took out a loan from the Canada Emergency Business Account. It was delivered by their banks, but backstopped by the government of Canada. 900,000, that's almost all the businesses, small businesses in the country that took out a CFIB loan. These loans were really helpful. They did provide some funds to businesses to survive. But that was when we thought COVID was going to be 2 weeks, 2 months to flatten the curve, not 2 years. And for some businesses, I have members in the city of Toronto that were closed down by government order for over 430 days. So now that debt that they have on their books, they haven't recovered their sales yet to be able to pay that off. Most businesses have not paid a nickel back on that CFIB loan. They have to do it by the end of this year, or they lose the forgivable portion. They also have to start paying interest. We're asking the Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, to give businesses a bit more of a runway, at least another year or two, to repay those loans, and that would be a big help.
Yeah. So I guess my last question would be, and maybe along the lines of what you're just saying, would that be the number one thing that government could do to help small business, or would you say there's something else that they can or should be doing to help us or help the small businesses during this environment of higher inflation, higher costs, higher interest rates? What would be your number one thing that you'd like to tell the government that they should be doing?
Well, number one, my usual advice for government, the number one thing they could do is not make it worse. And sadly, as we were talking about a minute ago, the government seemed to be making it worse, adding minimum wage hikes and CPP AI hikes, carbon tax increases. So they're making the job for small businesses more challenging, not less challenging. Secondly, some strategic changes, lowering a couple of tax rates would be a big help, but even giving more time to repay some of the CFIB loans that were issued, that would be also a big help. Third, and this is something that the federal government is already committed to, is lowering a few of the costs that businesses pay. And one of them is credit card processing fees. A lot of merchants in retail, hospitality, the service sector are powered by credit cards. Their customers want to use them. And those fees, the budget promised to lower those credit card fees by up to 27%. We're desperately hoping to get some details of what that looks like. So those are a few of the things we're calling on Ottawa and provinces to do.
Well, I think I'd be the one to cheer for less tax. That would be a great one. If you can
Getting
that to happen, that would be great. But Dan Kelly, President, CEO, and Chair of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, thank you so much for being on our show today, being a trooper and coming in with the sore throat. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you again down the road.
Anytime at all. Thanks so much.
All right, Dan, take care.